Thank you so much for joining us, as always. So, of course, Egypt is once again the standout. It was up by 11.5% in dollar terms. Is there anything specific stock-wise that is worth taking a look at for this market? We
saw some very good numbers coming out of the telecoms businesses, but we've also seen some stock-specific news coming through on the banks as well. NSGB has been on the receiving end of an M&A bid, which has seen that stock run quite significantly, and then just before the month end it actually hit the circuit breakers. So we are starting to see foreign interest returning to the market, not only investors but also people who are looking to buy businesses and set up a presence in Egypt, which I think is very good for the market. Of course, that M&A activity, always a positive signal. On the BRVM, interestingly enough, a second best performer when it comes to some of the African bourses, up 5.1%. Onatel is sitting up at 10.1% on the month. Good set of results coming through. Tell us more. They had very good numbers. I think two things are going for them there. The unison between the fixed line operation and the telecoms business is working out quite well, but they are seeing very strong growths in the cellular side of the business, and also the fact that Maroc Telecom remains deeply involved in how the business is run means that they get the right sort of stewardship for the environment that they're in. I think that's a winning combination. Apart from that, interesting that a manufacturer there of cigarettes and distributor, it's STBC, also up, and up almost 10% in fact on the month. And undeterred by all the concerns around what's going to take place for cigarette manufacturers. We saw what took place in Australia. They all have to have these homogenous boxes that they sell their cigarettes in. So what's going for this company right now? We like to look at that as a prime example of how Africa is so lowly correlated with the rest of the global markets. Indeed, we did see overseas or global tobacco companies take a hit when the Australian ruling actually came out, as people were concerned about their volumes going forward because they can't advertise as well or as much as they could do before. These are not things that are high on the concerns list when you come to the African businesses involved in the same line of business, and I think this comes back to be a positive for companies such as STBC. Okay, so let's look at Nigeria. Of course, one of the largest markets, up 4.7% in dollar terms. Standout international breweries, Cadbury's, and then of course a heavyweight banking stock like First Bank. But when it comes to the brewery sector right now, I mean, international breweries up 50%. We know that SAB is now making more moves in the market. How does this affect a smaller player like international breweries? Well, brewing has always been about scale. And what international breweries have managed to do in all this time is, despite their small size, they have been able to maintain their market share and carve out their niche within the market. I think for some of the bigger players who are looking to enter the market or to consolidate their positions in the Nigerian market, it definitely becomes an option because of the way it has actually been so well run. There has been a lot of rumor around what is actually happening with the business, and I'm sure some of it resulted in the 50% gain that we actually saw over the month of August. Cadbury's post a 24% rise for the month of August. Are you seeing further gains? The restructuring of the business continues. They did have some difficulties. This is going back 3 to 4 years. New management has actually come in to clean out the business, and volumes have been very strong. Demand for their product has actually been quite resilient in the difficult times that the country is going through. So that has actually come back to be a boon for the stock. So and people again, treating themselves to chocolates and the likes. Have a Bonvita when you can. On the other end of the spectrum, of course, and not all the markets were in positive territory. We had Mauritius. I talked about Mauritius. It was down 1.4%. New Mauritius hotels, a big drag on the markets. What's happening in the hotel space right now when it comes to those stocks, and at what level do they start becoming attractive? I mean, where's the level for you? Is there still more downward pressure? I think, as you pointed out earlier, the concerns about Europe are weighing heavily on such stocks. The biggest problem, if I'm to generalize across the sector, they have put on many more rooms than they had before. They've taken on fairly large amounts of debt to actually do that. I think the sector owes about $1.5 billion to the various banks, and they're now not seeing the occupancies come through on those rooms. Some of the occupancies in some of the hotels are as low as 40%. They need to be... So it's really just a case of unfortunate timing, but stock-wise, any attractive levels right now, or you're waiting for some further selling? I think given the gearing, given the profit growth prospects that we actually see, would like to see these prices somewhat lower than the levels we're seeing now, or else would like to see tourist arrivals rise fairly significantly from the current levels. Broadly, what are we looking at for African markets in the month of September? September, I think, is going to be a slightly more active month than what we actually saw in August. We're seeing more companies report their numbers, but we're also seeing central banks coming through with decisions which are going to be key, affecting how people perform in some of these markets. And I think that will drive the markets.
Thank you so much for joining us. Fungai Tarirah, Portfolio Manager at Momentum Asset Management.